In Saudi Arabia, a man once discovered an ancient manuscript shrouded in mystery. Drawn by its hidden promises, he began to read, and through its instructions, he summoned a female jinn whom he later took as his wife. But what began as a forbidden union quickly turned into horror. The jinn murdered his human wife, his parents, and even his in-laws, leaving devastation in her wake. The book at the heart of this story has long carried a reputation of danger and dread. Across centuries, it has been banned, burned, and feared, yet it has survived, known as Shams al-Ma'arif wal Taif al-Warif, translated as the Book of the Sun of Knowledge and the Subtleties of Spiritual Insight. Among Arabic grimoires, none is as infamous. In the mid-1200s, Isaac the Blind, a prominent Kabbalist, warned his followers of the risks in committing mystical secrets to writing. He criticized others, particularly those in Burgos, for openly speaking of esoteric knowledge in markets and streets, a sign that, in his view, they had strayed from the divine path. Around that same period, on the other side of the Mediterranean, Sufi thinkers were grappling with similar questions. Muayyad wrote Kitab al-Mu'anan, a treatise on the mystical science of letters and names, what later became known as letterism. Ibn Arabi himself cautioned that such knowledge must remain hidden, recorded only in coded terms to prevent corruption and misuse. He specifically warned against disclosing the methods by which letters and names could be harnessed for talismans or worldly manipulation. Yet, while secrecy was urged, another figure was boldly exploring precisely these forbidden frontiers. His name was Ahmad al-Buni, an Algerian scholar and mystic. The son of a Quran reciter, al-Buni walked the Sufi path from a young age and studied under the great master Abdulaziz al-Madawi, who also guided the renowned Ibn Arabi. At the beginning of Shams al-Ma'arif, al-Buni himself wrote a warning: whoever possesses this book must guard it from the unworthy. Let him not use it for himself, for that is forbidden. His words suggest he intended the work only for Sufi adepts capable of handling its depth with responsibility. For nearly a century after his death, the text did remain within small, secretive Sufi circles, but secrecy could not last. Over time, Shams al-Ma'arif spread beyond the mystics. It entered the households of Mamluk and later Ottoman rulers, circulated among soldiers and bureaucrats, and by the 17th century reached the peak of its influence in the Ottoman world. With its growing presence came fierce condemnation. Ibn Taymiyyah, one of Islam's most influential scholars, denounced the book as outright heresy and sorcery, branding it a manual of Sihr, forbidden magic. Still, it endured. The text that survives today, however, is not exactly what al-Buni wrote. Later authors expanded it, inserting additional material and attributing it falsely to him. Over centuries, these accretions transformed the book into a massive compilation nearly 6 times the size of the original. This version came to be known as Shams al-Ma'arif al-Kubra, the greater sun of knowledge, feared and forbidden. Yet impossible to erase, it remains the most notorious grimoire in the Islamic world, a work whose shadow stretches across history. Before exploring the contents of Shams al-Ma'arif, it is important to recognize that Ahmad al-Buni was no ordinary Sufi. He was a polymath skilled in mathematics, geometry, astronomy, and astrology. His intellect and discipline enabled him to compose such a complex work. Addressing his readers, al-Buni once wrote, "I have set forth all things for you, do not give in to weariness, for impatience is the ruin of the student. Seek, and you shall find; neglect, and you shall find nothing. Strive for knowledge, and you shall be guided." At the heart of his book lies Ilm al-Huruf, the science of letters. Al-Buni believed that letters carried hidden powers capable of shaping human destiny. Numbers too, he taught, held unique properties assigned by God, with each letter of the Arabic alphabet linked to a specific numerical value. To unlock these mysteries, he turned to the celestial world of planets, stars, and the unseen. For example, al-Buni mapped certain Arabic letters to cosmic bodies. The letter Alif symbolized the throne of God, while Jim was tied to the sphere of Saturn and assigned the value of 53. In his system, letters, numbers, and planets worked together as the foundation for talismanic practice. Here, parallels can be drawn with the Jewish Kabbalah, as both traditions rest on the belief that numbers and letters embody divine power. To al-Buni, the 28 letters of the Arabic alphabet could not be a coincidence. They mirrored the 28 mansions of the moon. The phases of the moon and the motions of the planets were not mere mechanical cycles, but living forces brimming with power, which, if properly harnessed, could benefit human life. Thus, he carefully explained how to calculate the moon's position, how to recognize its mansions, and how to time operations in harmony with the heavens. As an example, he taught that the lettered al corresponds to the number 4. To draw upon its strength, he instructed adepts to inscribe a 4 times for magic square, but only in ritual purity and at a proper lunar exaltation. The benefits, he claimed, were immense: protection under God's watch, ease in learning, elevated status on earth. And in the heavens, prisoners who carried the square would find release, and warriors who raised it as a banner would be shielded from corruption, betrayal, and enemy attack. Much of Shams al-Ma'arif is devoted to the hidden properties of the 99 names of God, the Asma al-Husna, as well as the mystical power contained in the Basmala. With the letter Dal, for instance, al-Buni saw profound symbolism. It appears in divine names such as Dame the Eternal and Wadid the Loving. In Dame, nothing precedes the Dal. In Wadid, nothing follows it. To him, this was proof that God's existence has neither beginning nor end. Hence, he declared, the letter Dal contains the secret of eternity and perpetuity. Al-Buni often stressed the inseparable link between letters and numbers. The secrets of speech are founded upon numbers, just as the secrets of actions are founded upon letters. In his writings, both carried divine assignments, hidden benefits placed within creation itself. His instructions for Dal included inscribing its square inside a ring to wear as an amulet, or dissolving it in water to be drunk as a cure against fever, snake bites, scorpion stings, or chest pains. The 4 times for square, when calculated correctly, ensured that each row and column added up to 34, the numerical value of Dal. One cannot deny al-Buni's brilliance. His system is intricate, profound, and at times uplifting, but woven into these teachings are darker elements, rituals that blur the line between spiritual devotion and forbidden magic. This is what makes Shams al-Ma'arif so perilous. A seeker may think they are pursuing divine wisdom, yet without realizing it, step into the realm of shadows. For example, immediately after his exposition on the letter Dal, al-Buni records an invocation for vengeance. To carry it out, a practitioner is instructed to track celestial positions, inscribing geometric figures filled with numbers and the letters of the target's name. Here, the text shifts from mysticism to sorcery, invoking powers that, once called, cannot easily be controlled. Once an amulet was crafted, Shams al-Ma'arif instructed that it be buried within the home, under the light of the moon. Yet the ritual did not end there. The practitioner was then told to summon an unseen being with an adjuration such as, "I adjure you by the one who created you, fashioned you, and placed you among the stars, be my necessary equipment, for I have proclaimed authority over you." This was a direct invocation of spirits from the unseen, a form of sorcery still employed by occult practitioners today. Magicians used talismans inscribed with grids, triangles, stars, and complex geometric patterns to compel jinn into service. These practices bore striking similarities to the methods of the Kabbalists, who also believed that numbers held intrinsic power and that geometry could act as a bridge, channeling hidden energies into the physical world. The text also included instructions for rituals meant to inspire love and attraction. Yet even here, the magician was required to summon unseen entities, an act forbidden in Islam and fraught with danger. Al-Buni devoted entire sections to the 28 lunar mansions, describing how each phase of the moon corresponded to particular spirits. Some, he claimed, were benevolent and could be approached for wisdom. Others were malevolent and could be forced into acts of vengeance, the acquisition of wealth, or the manipulation of rulers. One story tells of Abu Ja'far al-Bayaki, who allegedly possessed such an amulet. It was said that this talisman granted him entry into the court of the Abbasid Caliph Harun al-Rashid, where he was given anything he desired. Shams al-Ma'arif and Astrology, Forbidden Knowledge in Islam. The book does not confine itself to talismans alone. It delves deeply into astronomy and, even more prominently, astrology. Al-Buni devoted extensive passages to the 12 zodiac signs, the same symbols familiar in horoscopes today. His central claim was that the stars and planets, through their movements and alignments, influence the affairs of human life. This was not merely idle speculation in his time. Throughout history, kings and rulers relied heavily on astrologers to guide decisions of war, governance, and even marriage. Al-Buni sought to give his astrological system an Islamic foundation, citing verses of the Quran in support of his framework. Yet his interpretations were often strained, applying meanings to the text far removed from their true context. What set Shams al-Ma'arif apart from other astrological writings was its integration of the zodiac with talismanic practice. Letters and numbers were carefully arranged into squares and grids aligned with planets or signs. When constructed at precise astrological moments, these objects were believed to capture and transmit cosmic power. Such talismans might be carried for protection, buried to influence a location, or hidden within a structure to exert lasting control. The book also assigned ritual uses to Quranic verses. For example, Al-Buni reinterpreted passages from Surah al-Baqarah, reducing their numerical values into a magic square. He then instructed that if a practitioner inscribed the verse on his hand and carried the square as an amulet, he could extract secrets from another person simply by placing his hand on their chest and questioning them. In another example, he combined the names of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and the 4 archangels Jibril, Israfil, Mikael, and Azrael alongside numerical values derived from Surah Al-Imran. According to the instructions, whoever carried this talisman would be shielded from harm, both from jinn and from humans, whether their attack came by day or by night. It is undeniable that throughout history, letters and numbers have been regarded as vessels of hidden power. When arranged into precise geometric forms, as in Shams al-Ma'arif and Kabbalistic traditions, they were believed to impose influence upon the world, acting as channels between realms. Amulets, charms, and talismans, in this view, became conduits that carried unseen energy into material life. Some even claim that the most effective methods of summoning jinn lie within the exact techniques recorded in Shams al-Ma'arif, intricate grids of letters and numbers designed to compel forces from beyond. In many instances, Quranic verses are employed as the basis for these designs. The verses themselves are not the source of corruption. Rather, it is their manipulation forced into numerical patterns and distorted geometries that gives rise to forbidden practices. Magicians throughout history have gone further still, desecrating scripture in grotesque ways, reciting verses backward, twisting meanings, or writing sacred words with filth, even using ink mixed with urine or placing them under their feet. Such acts are deliberate profanations meant to invert the holy and summon dark forces. Thus, when Shams al-Ma'arif presents diagrams that it claims to derive from the Quran yet directs them toward harmful ends, the evil does not lie in the divine words, but in the distortion itself. This is the very essence of black magic, the corruption of what is sacred for the sake of power. From the outset, one must understand that Shams al-Ma'arif is an occult manual. Its writers often cloaked their work in Quranic references, giving the illusion of legitimacy. But beneath the surface, the book brims with diagrams and formulas that invert sacred knowledge. For example, one operation claims to draw from verses of Surah Hud yet instructs the practitioner to inscribe the figure upon the bone of an owl, then bury it within the home of the victim, promising destruction as the result. Such directions are unambiguously corrupt. Other passages detail talismans designed to acquire hidden wealth, manipulate rulers, or secure positions of power. Still more sinister are rituals with explicitly destructive intent. One elaborate geometric figure, falsely attributed to Quranic origins, instructs that the victim's name along with his mother's be written within the pattern during a specified lunar phase, and then buried beside an eastward flowing stream. According to the text, this act would cause the victim to bleed, and if left undisturbed for 7 days, would bring about his death. One of the gravest outcomes in Islam is divorce, a rupture so reviled that the Quran recounts how the angels Harut and Marut were sent to test humanity with forbidden knowledge of such sorcery. Disturbingly, Shams al-Ma'arif preserves instructions for this very practice. inscribe the prescribed figure with specific numbers, dip it in water, and sprinkle the liquid around the victim's home. The book claims this will sow discord between husband and wife until separation occurs. Other rituals target even neighbors, commanding them to leave their homes. In typical fashion, the practitioner is told to draw the figure upon wood, bury it outside the neighbor's door, and await the compulsion that would supposedly drive them away. Taken together, these instructions expose the true nature of the text. It does not elevate the soul or draw the reader closer to God. Instead, it twists the sacred into instruments of cruelty. Those who call Shams al-Ma'arif the most dangerous book in Islamic occultism are not exaggerating. It stands as one of the clearest examples of evil carried out under the guise of spirituality. A striking feature unites nearly all of its operations: the use of precise shapes and geometric designs interwoven with letters and numbers. This symbolism survives to this day. Across the Middle East and South Asia, countless people wear amulets in pouches around their necks, hang them in their homes, or keep them in shops for protection against the evil eye or sorcery. When opened, these amulets often reveal intricate grids, mysterious symbols, and coded arrangements of letters patterns uncannily similar to those described in Shams al-Ma'arif. Even now, practitioners who combat black magic frequently uncover such buried or hidden talismans, inscribed for harm and carrying the same sinister designs first laid out centuries ago. I believe much of the occult diagrammatic tradition can be traced back to two great sources: the Jewish mystical system of the Kabbalah and the infamous grimoire Shams al-Ma'arif. I remember an experience from nearly 11 years ago when I was only 13. At the time, I often went to my teacher's house to learn the Quran. There, I found myself drawn to an old copy of the Holy Book. I always preferred to read from that edition, not only for its age, but because of what I discovered hidden within it. After the final chapter of the Quran, I found additional pages. These were unlike anything I had seen before. They contained the 99 names of Allah, but not presented in the simple form I had known. Instead, each divine name was accompanied by specific instructions: how many times to recite it, at what hour, under which conditions, and the effect it was believed to bring. Some promised sustenance and wealth, others healing from illness, the growth of knowledge, or the opening of opportunities. Some names even appeared in pairs, such as Ya Malik with Ya Qudus, each pair carrying its own prescribed benefit. As I turned the pages, I found something even more mysterious. For every surah of the Quran, there appeared what the manuscript called a mappa grid of numbers carefully arranged into matrices of varying size. Some were 4 times 4, others 5 times 4, and some larger still. Each grid came with instructions explaining how it might be used and what benefit it would supposedly bring. I was too young then to understand their depth, but one example left a lasting impression. It was the map of Surah Maryam. The instructions said that if one copied this grid onto paper and tied it to the branches of a barren tree in the morning sunlight, then by God's will that tree would bear fruit. In our yard we had 4 trees: 1 lemon, 3 guava. For years they had stood barren. Out of curiosity, I followed the instructions, tying the copied grid to each tree. To my amazement, the next year all 4 trees produced fruit in abundance. Year after year, they continued to bear until the day we eventually cut them down. Even after I removed the papers, the fruit never ceased. At the time, I did not dwell on it, and I am grateful to God for that. Only later did I realize what I had encountered: the science of letters and numbers. I often wonder what might have happened had I experimented further with other maps and intentions. That one act seemed to bring no harm, but therein lies the danger. The same methods that can appear benign can also conceal malice. This is precisely what we find in Shams al-Ma'arif. Al-Buni and later compilers used similar charts and grids, sometimes with applications that promised healing or blessing, but often with instructions for vengeance, manipulation, and destruction, all under the guise of Quranic material. The Quran itself, of course, has no connection to such acts, but because most people cannot easily distinguish what is harmless from what is dangerous, the only safe course is abstention. One cannot know in advance the consequence of meddling with such powers. I tell this story to illustrate that the science of letters, numbers, and geometry is not purely theoretical. It can have tangible effects. The map I once used mirrored the practices I later studied in Shams al-Ma'arif. One example seemed beneficial, the other clearly perilous. My conclusion is firm: this body of knowledge is not safe to approach. As for Shams al-Ma'arif, I counsel all to keep far away from it. Its pages shimmer with wonder and mysticism, but behind them lies a path that can lead into shadow before one even realizes they have taken the first step. Global magical practices. The influence of Shams al-Ma'arif. Despite being banned in many Muslim lands, Shams al-Ma'arif did not disappear. It flourished. By the 19th century, colonial administrators in North Africa began to notice its widespread presence. French officers in Algeria, during raids on villages or investigations into uprisings, often confiscated manuscripts and talismans from local healers and scholars. Time and again, Shams al-Ma'arif appeared among them, an enduring reminder of its reach and influence. From the courts of caliphs to village households, from hidden amulets to vast Ottoman libraries, the book traveled across centuries and continents. Fearful, forbidden, yet never forgotten, it remains one of the most controversial and dangerous works in the history of the Islamic occult tradition. The French Orientalist Octavius, who studied these materials firsthand, once observed, "The book was not a curiosity kept on shelves, but a living source of magical practice." Villagers carried talismans written according to its instructions, folded papers with magic squares inscribed with Quranic verses and the names of God, often hidden in leather pouches worn around the neck. These amulets were prepared to protect against illness, to shield men from bullets in battle, and to guard homes from jinn. If there was such urgent demand for defenses against jinn, it follows that darker forces must also have been widespread, and Shams al-Ma'arif preserves a vast array of instructions not only for protection, but for commanding spirits, bending wills, and unleashing harm. Ethnographers working in Morocco and Algeria during the 20th century confirmed that these practices persisted long after colonial rule. In rural communities, healers continued to rely on the ofak, the numerical squares that al-Buni systematized in his book. These patterns were reproduced, copied, and circulated from manuscript to manuscript, sometimes altered, but always recognizable in their structure. In South Asia, the book achieved even greater circulation. By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Shams al-Ma'arif was translated, printed, and sold in both Urdu and Arabic editions. Its diagrams and talismanic instructions moved out of fragile manuscripts and into the hands of ordinary people through inexpensive lithographed copies. In cities like Delhi, Lahore, and Lucknow, amulet makers known as amils relied on the book as their primary source. Even today, in the markets of Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh, one can see the legacy. Stalls still sell small leather pouches containing folded slips of paper filled with grids of numbers and letters. Buyers rarely open them, but the forms within are recognizable as the very same magic squares preserved in al-Buni's manual. For centuries, practitioners, magicians, and amils across the Islamic world have drawn directly on the techniques of Shams al-Ma'arif, especially its elaborate system of numerical and lettered squares. Ethnographic and archival evidence shows these grids employed in talismans designed to bind jinn, undermine rivals, attract wealth, or ensnare hearts through love magic. These are practices both ethically troubling and explicitly forbidden in Islamic law. They reveal why Shams al-Ma'arif has long been regarded as one of the most dangerous books ever produced in the Islamic world.